Well, good morning again. Today is January the 13th. Amen. We are well on our way to reading through the Bible in a year. We're going to read Psalms chapter 13, Genesis 30 and 31, and Proverbs chapter 13. So we've got 4 chapters today, 2 articles, 1, the indispensable pillars of freedom, and then the virtue of hard work. Amen. And so let's start today in the book of Psalms, and we are going to Psalms chapter 13.
Psalm 13, to the chief musician, a psalm of David.
How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long will my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord, my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed against him. Lest those who trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in your mercy. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me.
Amen. Psalms chapter 13. Now we're going to move to the book of Genesis. Amen. It's a little bit shorter reading today, but that's okay. We just follow the plan and we will be done through the Bible in a year. Amen. Genesis, starting at chapter 30.
Now, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob,
Give me children, or else I die.
And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel.
Am I in the place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?
Here's my maid, Bilhah. Go into her, and she will bear a child on my knees, that I also may have children by her.
Then she gave him Bilhah, her maid, as wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived, and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said,
God has judged my case, and he has also heard my voice and given me a son.
Therefore she called his name Dan. And Rachel's maid Bilhah conceived again, and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said,
With great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and indeed I have prevailed.
So she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped bearing, she took Zilpah her maid and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said,
A troop comes.
So she called his name Gad. And Leah's maid Zilpah bore Jacob a second son.
I am happy, for the daughters will call me blessed.
So she called his name Asher. Now Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah,
Please, give me some of your son's mandrakes.
Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?
Therefore, he will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes.
When Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him.
You must come in to me, for I have surely hired you with my son's mandrakes.
and he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son.
God has given me my wages, because I have given my maid to my husband.
So she called his name Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son.
God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons.
So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son.
God has taken away my reproach.
So she called his name Joseph.
The Lord shall add to me another son.
And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban,
Send me away, that I may go to my own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, and let me go. For you know my service, which I have done for you.
Please, stay, if I have found favor in your eyes. For I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake. Name me your wages, and I will give it.
You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. And now, when shall I also provide for my own house?
What shall I give you?
You shall not give me anything. If you will do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. So my righteousness will answer for me in time to come, when the subject of my wages comes before you. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the lambs, will be considered stolen if it is with me.
Oh, that it were according to your word.
So he removed that day the male goats that were speckled and spotted, all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the brown ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. Then he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. Now Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar, and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white strips in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And the rods which he had peeled he set before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, so that they should conceive when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then Jacob separated the lambs, and made the flocks face toward the streaked and all the brown in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to pass, whenever the stronger livestock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the livestock in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. Thus the man became exceedingly prosperous, and had large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys.
And now, chapter number 31.
Now Jacob heard the words of Laban's sons.
Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has acquired all this wealth.
And Jacob saw the countenance of Laban, and indeed it was not favorable toward him as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob,
Return to the land of your fathers and to your family, and I will be with you.
So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field, to his flock.
I see your father's countenance, that it is not favorable toward me as before, but the God of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my might I have served your father, yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not allow him to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore speckled. And if he said thus, the streaked shall be your wages, then all the flocks bore streaked. So God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it happened at the time when the flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted. Then the angel of God spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift your eyes now and see, all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar and where you made a vow to me. Now arise, get out of this land, and return to the land of your family.
Then Rachel and Leah answered,
Is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money.
For all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do it.
Then Jacob rose and set his sons and his wives on camels. And he carried away all his livestock and all his possessions which he had gained, his acquired livestock which he had gained in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the household idols that were her father's. And Jacob stole away, unknown to Laban the Syrian, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. So he fled with all that he had. He arose and crossed the river, and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. And Laban was told on the 3rd day that Jacob had fled. Then he took his brethren with him, and pursued him for 7 days' journey. And he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But God had come to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said to him,
Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad.
So Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob,
What have you done, that you have stolen away unknown to me, and carried away my daughters like captives taken with the sword? Why did you flee away secretly, and steal away from me and not tell me? For I might have sent you away with joy and songs, with timbrel and harp, and you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have done foolishly in so doing. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, Be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. And now you have surely gone because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods?
Because I was afraid, for I said, Perhaps you would take your daughters from me by force. With whomever you find your gods, do not let him live. In the presence of our brethren, identify what I have of yours and take it with you.
for Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, into Leah's tent, and into the two maids' tents, but he did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household idols, put them in the camel's saddle, and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father,
Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise before you, for the manner of women is with me.
And he searched, but did not find the household idols. Then Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban.
What is my trespass? What is my sin that you have so hotly pursued me? Although you have searched all my things, what part of your household things have you found? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by beasts I did not bring to you, I bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus I have been in your house 20 years. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night.
These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock. All that you see is mine. What can I do this day to these my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me.
So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Then Jacob said to his brethren,
Gather stones.
And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. Laban called it Jegar-sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed.
This heap is a witness between you and me this day.
Therefore its name was called Galeed, also Mizpah, because he said,
May the Lord watch between you and me, when we are absent one from another. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Here is this heap, and here is this pillar, which I have placed between you and me. This heap is a witness, and this pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, and the God of their father judge between us.
And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain, and called his brethren to eat bread. And they ate bread and stayed all night on the mountain. And early in the morning Laban arose, and kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban departed, and returned to his place.
Amen. Isn't it interesting? Actually, I was going to say fun. Isn't it Isn't it interesting and fun to read the accounts of our biblical ancestors, really, our biblical founders? Amen. Oh, it's wonderful to hear the stories. And I remember just growing up as a little boy in the church that I grew up in. We had a very strong Sunday school, and growing up in Sunday school, we would hear all of those stories. Oh my goodness, it's so wonderful. We're going to finish our Bible reading today by turning to the book of Proverbs, and it is Proverbs chapter 13. Let my fingers do the walking here. We are getting to the book of Proverbs and chapter number 13.
A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. A man shall eat well by the fruit of his mouth, but the soul of the unfaithful feeds on violence. He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction. The soul of a lazy man desires and has nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made rich. A righteous man hates lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and comes to shame. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. There is one who makes himself rich, yet has nothing, and one who makes himself poor, yet has great riches. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By pride comes nothing but strife, but with the well-advised is wisdom. Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. He who despises the word will be destroyed, but he who fears the commandment will be rewarded. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to turn one away from the snares of death. Good understanding gains favor, but the way of the unfaithful is hard. Every prudent man acts with knowledge, but a fool lays open his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a faithful ambassador brings health. Poverty and shame will come to him who disdains correction, but he who regards a rebuke will be honored. A desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, but it is an abomination to fools to depart from evil. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Evil pursues sinners, but to the righteous, good shall be repaid. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of a sinner is stored up for the righteous. Much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, and for lack of justice there is waste. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. The righteous eats to the satisfying of his soul, but the stomach of the wicked shall be in want.
Amen. Proverbs is always so good. Obviously has so much wisdom. Amen. We've got two readings for today. The first one, the indispensable pillars of freedom. It's found in the book of Psalms, and it comes from Psalms 11 and verse number 3. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? So, the indispensable pillars of freedom. America is filled with imposing structures, from the Sears Tower to the Lincoln Memorial, from the Empire State Building to the Golden Gate Bridge. While each differs dramatically in outward appearance, they are all the same in that the most crucial element for each is its foundation. If the foundation ever begins to crack or weaken, the entire structure will be in danger of collapsing. The same is true for the nation. Our foundation must be regularly inspected and maintained. But this cannot be done if we don't know what our foundation is. Fortunately, those who built this constitutional republic clearly identified its pillars and supports. As George Washington succinctly stated, and I quote, "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion, and morality are indispensable supports." Unquote. America's two foundational supports are religion and morality. And if we lose these, the entire nation will be in danger of crumbling and failing. Notice similar affirmations of America's foundations. It is religion and morality alone which can establish the principles upon which freedom can securely stand. The only foundation of a free constitution is pure virtue. This was John Adams, President, signer of the Declaration. Another statement. Has it, government, any solid foundation? Any chief cornerstone? I think it has an everlasting foundation in the unchangeable will of God. The sum of my argument is that civil government is of God. And this was by James Otis, leader of the Sons of Liberty, mentor of John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Another quote, "The only foundation for a useful education is in a republic is to be laid in religion. Without this there can be no virtue, and without virtue there can be no liberty, and liberty is the object and life of all republican governments." This was written by Benjamin Rush, signer of the Declaration. Another quote, "Without morals, a republic cannot subsist any length of time. They, therefore, who are decrying the Christian religion are undermining the solid foundation of morals, the best security for the duration of free governments," written by Charles Carroll, signer of the Declaration and framer of the Bill of Rights. Another quote, "The Christian religion, its general principles, must ever be regarded among us as the foundation of civil society." stated by Daniel Webster, defender of the Constitution. Another statement. One of the beautiful boasts of our municipal jurisprudence is that Christianity is a part, that Christianity is a part of the common law. There never has been a period in which the common law did not recognize Christianity as laying at its foundations. This was from Joseph Story, U.S. Supreme Court Justice appointed by James Madison. The founders agreed that religion and morality was the foundation of our country and its unique political system. Notice that none of the founders mentioned economics, jobs, or any other material elements, which certainly were a genuine concern in their day. They all understood that economic prosperity was the result of spiritual and moral strength, not vice versa. Washington was so convinced that America's prosperity was dependent upon religion and morality that he called them the two indispensable pillars, even further asserting, and I quote, "The vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness. The mere political the mere politician equally with the pious man ought to respect and to cherish them." Washington believed that if anyone, especially the mere politician, worked to undermine religion and morality in the nation, he could not be called a patriot. Let me read that again. That's a good quote. Washington believed that if anyone, especially the mere politician, worked to undermine religion and morality in the nation, he could not be called a patriot. The two vital ways to protect America's foundations are, number one, to assure that religion and morality are the true, life-giving foundation of our own personal lives. And number two, to elect civil leaders who will respect and cherish these twin supports of religion and morality as the great pillars of human happiness. It is essential that we do both, for if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Psalms 11 and verse number 3. That is the article, The Indispensable Pillars of Freedom. Now we're going to move on to the virtue of hard work. And this is found in the book of Proverbs and comes from Proverbs 14 and verse number 23. In all labor there is profit. Among the many biblical virtues to be incorporated into our daily lives is that of hard work. From the beginning, God commanded, 6 days you shall labor. Exodus 29 and Deuteronomy 5:13. Notice that God does not say can labor, but rather shall labor. God said to work hard for 6 days and then have a day of rest. For centuries, The work week was 6 days, but in the past century was reduced to 5, and across Europe and in many parts of America, the push is being made to reduce it to 4. The number of hours of work actually performed in any week has been steadily declining. There is a push for less work and more free time. But the Bible encourages just the opposite. Notice some of its many verses praising hard work. In all labor there is profit. Proverbs 14:23. He who tills his land will have plenty of bread. Proverbs 12:11. And the deeds of a man's hands will return to him. Proverbs 12:14. He must labor, performing with his own hands what is good, so that he will have something to share with one who has need. Ephesians 4:28. Make it your ambition to lead a quiet life and work with your hands, so that you will not be in any need. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12. He also who is slack in his work is brother to him who destroys. Proverbs 18 and verse number 9. Recognizing the charity of this Bible teaching, John Adams declared, "Suppose a nation in some distant region should take the Bible for their only law book, and every member should regulate his conduct by the precepts there exhibited. Every member would be obliged in conscience to temperance and frugality and industry, or hard work." Adams recognized that if you lived and guided your life by the Bible, your conscience would oblige or require you to work hard. Hard work is a biblical teaching, but it must also be accompanied by morality. For hard work in an immoral cause will not bring the promised biblical reward. Founding Father John Jay understood this and affirmed that America had become prosperous because the spirit of hard work in the early colonists had properly been joined with that of virtue and morality. And I quote, "Under the auspices and direction of divine providence, our forefathers removed to the wilds and wilderness of America. By their industry or hard work, they made it a fruitful, and by their virtue, a happy country." Because hard work, what the founders termed industry, was such an important biblical trait, they inculcated it in their children from their earliest years. As John Adams reminded his wife Abigail, "The education of our children is never out of my mind. Train them to virtue. Habituate them to industry or hard work, activity, and spirit." Thomas Jefferson similarly told his daughter, "It is your future happiness which interests me, and nothing can contribute more to it, moral rectitude always excepted, than the contracting a habit of industry and activity. Of all the cankers or enemies of human happiness, none corrodes with so silent yet so bountiful an influence as indolence or laziness. Body and mind both unemployed, our being existence becomes a burden, and every object about us loathsome, even the dearest. Our founding fathers, prominent in the field of education, also stressed the importance of teaching this trait to youth. For example, Declaration signer Benjamin Rush said that students must, above all, learn to love life and endeavor to acquire as many of its conveniences as possible by industry and economy, or in other words, by hard work and savings. Noah Webster, the schoolmaster to America, similarly told students, labor is one of the best preservatives both of health and of moral habits. Notice that Webster, like so many other founders, associated labor with morals. Declaration signer John Witherspoon likewise declared, habits of industry or hard work prevent the introduction of many vices and are intimately connected with sobriety and good morals. Idleness is the mother or nurse of almost every vice and want or lust, which is its inseparable companion, urges men on to the most abandoned and destructive courses. Industry, therefore, is a moral duty of greatest moment, absolutely necessary to national prosperity, and the sure way of obtaining the blessing of God. The founders believed that hard work and morals were inseparably connected, and that one facilitated the other. They even attributed the generally increased immorality found in cities to be reduced opportunities for hard work and increased leisure time found there. In the country, a normal workday often extended from sunup to sundown, but not so in the city. Morals generally suffered as a result. For this reason, Thomas Jefferson told Benjamin Rush, "I view great cities as pestilential to the morals, the health, and the liberties of man." Dr. Rush, not only an educator but also America's most famous physician, replied, and he stated this, "I agree with you in your opinion of cities. Cowper the poet very happily expresses our ideas of them compared with the country, and I quote, "God made the country, man made cities. I consider them in the same light that I do abscesses on the human body, as reservoirs of all the impurities of a community." Unquote. James Madison agreed, pointing out, "'Tis not the country that peoples fill either the bridewells or jails or the bedlams or mental institutions. These mansions of wretchedness are tenanted from the distresses and vice of overgrown cities. This is not to say that the influences of cities cannot be overcome, for the real problem is not cities themselves, but rather the reduced opportunity for extended hard work. Therefore, the solution is finding more opportunities to engage in it rather than avoid it. Incidentally, President Ronald Reagan would take 1 month every year during his presidency to return from Washington, D.C. to his ranch in California to swing an axe, wield a chainsaw, dig holes for posts, and build fences, all hard physical labor. Booker T. Washington, head of the famous Tuskegee Institute, long ago affirmed to students, and I quote, "No man can read the Bible and be lazy. Christianity increases a man's wants, and therefore increases his capacity for labor. So, whether living in the city or the country, look for opportunities to engage in hard work, and avoid laziness as the plague it is, remembering that the Bible clearly affirms in all labor there is profit." And so that is the reading of this article, The Virtue of Hard Work. Amen. And so I pray you have an amazing rest of your day, and be sure to take some time and meditate on what has been heard here, what has been read today. Amen. And we will see you again tomorrow.